So homeopathy was like the answer to me. It was like it helped my daughter. I'm at my end of my rope and I'm not going to go on drugs, even if they tell me I have MS, full blown. So that's when I started. And the thing that kind of tipped me over the edge was I was laying in bed one day and I had my hand on my stomach and I realized I can't feel my hand. And then I was like, wait a minute, I can't feel my stomach either. I literally couldn't feel anything solidly all the way through to my bones, from the bottom of my feet to the top of my head. I could not feel a thing. You could have hit me with a hammer, I would not have felt it. So, in one way, it was kind of a blessing. I didn't have a lot of pain. But on the other side, I knew something was really wrong. And so that's when I sought out, a homeopath. I went to one practitioner just to meet her, and she basically told me I was incurable. That was quite the gut blow. And I just determined that I was not going to be incurable and I was going to find a way.
Hello, everyone, and especially warm welcome to the lovely Kelley Palomino. And I think the names I'm seeing here, you are all pretty much OGs. I think I've seen your names here right from the beginning, and you would have seen Kelley from like a bull out of the gate from the day the membership opened. Kelley was there helping everyone, and I have been learning so much from her. And then we had a WhatsApp call a while ago now, a couple of months ago, whatever, and just like, who is this person? Where have you come from? And she just told me her story of using mega potencies. And I said to her, you have to come and share it. And I know she was saying she's feeling a little bit nervous, and I know what that feels like. But your story is really good and it gives so many people hope, especially when you talk about opioid addictions and things like that, where people are trying to manage pain. I mean, I know somebody who the husband had a car accident, got addicted to opioids, and it ended up turning into such an addiction that, the wife and children left him. He had to go and live with his mum to get rehabilitated. And it's been years now, and he just can't, like, it's such a deep addiction. So if we have anything in homeopathy or natural otherwise that can help with that extreme pain, then, let's talk about it. And I
I
know some
agree.
people can get a bit apprehensive about megas and they're like, you're using it 10 times a day. What? And that was probably me. You're using mega potencies at all. Oh my gosh, they need to be feared. But this is why what we get taught versus the reality in homeopathy is often so different. So I just want to hear and love you to share your raw story with everyone of how, give us a bit of background actually of your studies and how you found the megas and kind of just tell us who you are because everyone's seeing your name, but now they get to see the person behind it. I feel like I want to
Well,
give you like a little applause, a little
oh gosh.
welcome.
Well, when I tell my story, it sounds like a heavy trauma story, and I don't like it to come off that way, but I have gone through a lot, and homeopathy has like brought me through to the other side. And so, when you just kind of spill it all out in one big thing, it's a lot. But I found homeopathy really for my daughter initially. She had eczema and it was really bad and it was starting to encroach into her face, and she had struggled with it for years and she was having a lot of terrible nightmares. And so at the time I didn't realize it was all mold kind of related, but I found the Banerjee protocol and just doing the Bovista and Calc Carb, alternating that, it just gave her such a great healing response, and she stopped having all the nightmares and those kinds of things. It really did help, and we did other things like we took off wheat and did some work on our part. But that's kind of my introduction to homeopathy, and I was like, wow, this is really great. And at the time I was really struggling with some autoimmune things that had kind of come on, first with like EMF sensitivity. I was getting real Wi-Fi sensitive. And then it turned into a monster. And so I started getting really bad, like syphilitic type nighttime issues where, I couldn't lay in my bed without getting blackouts. I couldn't fold my arms or my legs or use a pillow, or everything would go dark. I had a lot of neuropathy and mini strokes. And it was just a wild ride. And I realized that I actually had MS, the very beginnings of it. And so I did some MRIs and found that I had some small lesions on my brain. And they really didn't have anything to offer me. That's what I found going through the whole medical process. I am not a doctor person. That was probably the first time I went to see a doctor aside from having my babies. Even then, I would tell the midwives I'm going to come 3 times and that's it for me. So not a doctor person. So I did the whole doctor route, and it was very discouraging. And I was just like wondering, how in the world do people keep in this system? They don't offer any kind of help. At the time, I was having some like heart palpitations. I was driving and my eyes would light up with colors and then go dark, and it was wild. And I would go and get monitored, and they're like, nothing's wrong with you. And I was like, well, I can't just be driving my kids and then pass out. I didn't know what was going on. So homeopathy was like the answer to me. It was like it helped my daughter. I'm at my end of my rope, and I'm not going to go on drugs, even if they tell me I have MS, full blown. So that's when I started. And the thing that kind of tipped me over the edge was I was laying in bed one day and I had my hand on my stomach, and I realized I can't feel my hand. And then I was like, wait a minute, I can't feel my stomach either. So I started poking around, and I was like, well, maybe I'm just not feeling with my fingers. So I got something else, and I was like poking my body. I literally couldn't feel anything solidly all the way through to my bones, from the bottom of my feet to the top of my head. I could not feel a thing. You could have hit me with a hammer, I would not have felt it. So in one way, it was kind of a blessing. I didn't have a lot of pain. But on the other side, I knew something was really wrong. And so that's when I sought out, a homeopath. And at the time I had, been in school and I was studying. I was trying to like fix myself. That's why I went to school. I went to one practitioner just to meet her. And she basically told me I was incurable. That was quite the gut blow. And I just determined that I was not
Mm,
going to be incurable and I was going to find a way. And so I found someone else, and she gave me opium, which,
mm,
papaver is the numbing flower.
mm,
And that was an obvious,
mm.
very first remedy. And I was nervous to take it, of course, at first. I was kind of new to a lot of different remedies in homeopathy, but I had a healing crisis after that. And I just told myself, she just gave me one dose. She was very classical, 30C. And I responded to that. But it was, I kind of got my symptoms all come back a little bit. And I just told myself, I've never died from any of these symptoms before. I'm not going to die from this. And I just kind of white knuckled through about 3 or 4 days of pretty awful return of symptoms, because mine were serious. But then after that, I started noticing things were just like falling away, falling away, falling away. And, sleep became something that I actually wouldn't have to pray for morning to come. It was something I could just go to sleep, and I was starting to feel rested, and, all those normal things that we see. And it was really great. And so I had a period of like a couple doses of the opium every couple months, and I would see more and more progress until I was able to function again. Before, I was not very functional. My kids would have to watch me if I had a bad day. I was afraid I was going to stroke out. But then I was like feeling better. So after that, my homeopath went MIA, and, I'd already had a bad experience. So I decided I was just going to keep going myself. And so that's when I started kind of like looking in different ways. And I actually stumbled into, he's not considered mega potency, but he does use CMs regularly, and that's Dr. Manzoor.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he's an Indian Pakistani
Big
doctor,
sense.
and he was just like handing out CMs like candy to everybody. And I was like, what's going on? Because I'm learning very classical stuff. And, I was just watching him and how he was like prescribing very miasmatically out of the gate. He would first prescribe like a list of 3 miasmatic remedies, and then he would prescribe the regular 30Cs. And I was like, that's so interesting. So I started utilizing some of his ways of prescribing. I really felt like I had some miasmatic stuff that I needed to work on. And so I nervously took some CM potencies. And I was really nervous type, So I took some of those and nothing bad happened. And so
Wow.
I kept going, and I was able to progressively heal myself from, really terrible stuff. And so I am feeling real good by 2020, the beginning of 2020, probably like 95% better. Then COVID hit. And because I am, with autoimmune issues, it really kicked my butt. And I got long COVID from that. And it was a struggle. I could hardly pull myself out of the long COVID issues. It really didn't affect me until I got sick, maybe the third time. And that's when it hit me. But I got like phlebitis in my body, and I've never had that before, and some other, weird things. And then right after that, I got hit by a car. And so he T-boned me. He was drunk. And so I had come like so far, and I was like, God, why? you know, why? I was almost healed. And so then I was in a lot of pain. My chiropractor has seen me all my life since I was 12. He's a great friend. I actually got to save his life during COVID, which was kind of nice to be able to pay him back. But he told me he thought I needed back surgery. He's like, Kelley, this is not good, and I can't get you any healing. And because we had done it for a while, and he's just like, I think that you're young enough, you're a good candidate for back surgery. And he's like not a medicine doctor either. So it was bad. It was really painful when I had to sit in front of the computer or do things. I would have to rest my body's weight on my elbows, and I would just like use my elbows as like my crutches and like keep from compressing my disc. And so I had 3 compressed discs from that, mostly in my low back, but one in the center. And so that was tough. I still had to be a mom and homeopath, and I was finishing up some school. And so, yeah, it was not easy. But because I had dabbled in the CMs, and I had stumbled into Jill's mega group, before all this happened. And so I was familiar with it, but I hadn't really taken a lot of the mega potencies, just the CM stuff. And I had made a good friend in Ikram's group who was really good on the megas too. And she was a great mentor to me and gave me some encouragement to like take these remedies, and I wasn't going to die. So I started studying, and, I was hurting, but I was studying, and I would just cram, and I just took copious notes. I'm not really good with my memory. I've had a lot of stuff like mess my memory up, but I'm pretty good at taking notes. So if you need information, I probably have it on my phone somewhere. But
You are ridiculously good at taking notes. I have never seen anything like it.
it's literally my computer brain there on my phone. So yeah, and
Wow.
that's what I do. So I took a lot of notes, and I started putting together this spine chart because I couldn't remember. And I was like, why doesn't, like, she has this wonderful book, but I'm like, there's no pictures. I need pictures. So
And
I
I
needed.
have to add in there that that spine chart of Kelly's I have been using for like a couple of years. And so when we started the group, I posted that spine chart. I'm like, oh, this is what I use. And Kelly's like, yeah, I made that. And I'm like, what? That's so cool.
I
I'm a
made it when
visual
I was
learner.
like in crazy pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was a few mistakes at first, but I hope everybody's got the final one. But yeah, it helped me because,
Hmm.
I had pain going on everywhere, and I needed like a reference chart. And Hershoff, his book is good, but it wasn't helping me. And
Which
so,
book is that?
Aisha Hershoff, the musculoskeletal,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
this one.
Oh,
Mhm,
okay.
mhm. Have you read that one?
I
That one's
don't.
really good.
Okay.
It has like the actual locations, it has pictures, it will tell you different things for different issues like cervical spine. It comes up and it's got
Oh,
like a whole bunch of,
wow.
it's a
No, I
really
haven't
good
got that
reference,
one.
but it wasn't working for me at
Hmm.
all. No
Oh.
homeopathic in the 30, 200, 1M, nothing was taking the edge off at all.
Mm.
And so that's when I decided I was going to move to the mega potencies and try it, mainly because I had a really good mentor. She's actually from Australia, and she was telling me different things that I could try. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to study the heck out of this. And that's when I made the chart, and then I could use it as a reference. But the one thing that Jill did not really have in her book was it's this book, The Getting Back on Track. If anybody is planning to use mega potencies, you really need to read the book, because a lot of people think that, oh, if a little bit of homeopathy is good, a mega potency is going to be even better. And that's not the case with the mega potencies. You can actually make things a lot worse if you aren't sure what you're doing.
Mm.
So, like if you have nerve pain, she says not to take hypericum in a mega potency. You should take it when you're pain free because it can really make your pain a lot more nervy.
Mm.
And so there's a few things like that, but it's not actually, like more is better. If the lower potencies are not working for you and you really feel like there's some sort of an emotional block when, the mega potencies come into play. And
Mm.
so for me, the Restox was not in her mega book, but she was talking about it on her page. So I was able to take some notes. And I'm the type of person, I like to get into a really hot shower if I'm hurting at all. Anytime I'm hurting, I'm in the shower. I'll just live in there. So I
Yes.
was taking like 3 showers a day. I was just needing some relief. And that is like a huge keynote for Rest Talks. And so even though I couldn't find it anywhere on the page that anyone had taken Rest Talks in MM for pain, I decided to just go for it. And I was like, what's it going to do? I can't be hurting any more than this, I don't think. So I took the MM, and that was the key for me. So I initially started with, I think it was like Staphylococcus aureus, and Symphytum in higher potencies, and also Syphilinum. I wanted to try and like clear a
Mm.
miasm, but those really didn't give me the relief that I needed until I stumbled on the MM of Restox along with Calc Fluor, and I took that in a 10M. And for me, the Calc Fluor was like a Tylenol. It just like whew, all the pain just like eased, and Calc Fluor is really good for like elasticity. And so I think it just really helped with those two remedies to just give me some tension relief and elasticity. And then Hydrastis started to like kick in. And so Hydrastis is like a keynote of needing crutches to like pull your spine and like lift and get it from being so compressed. And it's usually like equal pain on both sides. And so I even just saw recently someone posted on the mega page that she took Hydrastis in a 50M when she got back injury, and she took it a few times in a row, and it just gave her like instant relief. So
Mm.
if you've got that equal pain, you feel like you have to like push up on your chair to like try and keep that from compressing, Hydrastis might be a good one to try. So for me, those ones I alternated regularly: the Restox, the Calc Fluor, and the Hydrastis. And that was like great pain. I did take hypericum in an MM on mistake because I didn't know,
Mm.
but I don't feel like I had any issues with that. So luckily it didn't cause me
Mm.
to like get worse. But those were the ones that I mostly took, and I muscle test also. So I would occasionally muscle test for needing the Symphytum or Staphylococcus aureus. But those were like the ones that I mostly used. And staph and Symphytum are really good for like degeneration, or if you have a history of, that breaks, you have a lot of jaw tension, your neck is restricted. I had a lot of neck pains.
Mm.
Those really helped me too. And the reason that the megapotencies are so good is that, like, when you get an injury, is that it's almost like you've gotten a head injury, but deep inside, and it's called your sphenoid bone.
Mm.
And Jill discovered that because she was working with a chiropractor. She went to a meeting and she found that there is a little tiny bone on the inside of your brain. It's surrounded by your pituitary and your hypothalamus, and it's kind of cushioned all in there, but it is constantly moving, like microscopically moving. And matter of fact, all of our cranial bones move microscopically and they have different frequencies, but specifically the sphenoid. And when you get jarred or hit, head injury, car accident, a lot of times it can throw it off kilter, or it can not even move very much anymore. So fixing all of the bones in the cranial is the goal really for the megapotencies, because it causes a lot of endocrine disruption, because those are surrounded by all those different glands, your hypothalamus and your pituitary. And so that really helps. And so she found that even like facial tension
Mm.
can cause the bones to get pulled out of alignment. And then from that point on, you are not flowing correctly because the sphenoid is not allowed to, move as it should.
Mm.
So she was able to see like conium people, the sphenoid, the tension in their face was like pulling their eyes up. And so they kind of had like a cat eye look, slanted eyes, and it was pulling it up. And even like the roof of their mouth was really high pitched. She found all the tension was like being pulled up like that. So have you seen people who have like a really tight face and the eyes are pointed up like that? And that's, she found they all tended to have conium symptoms.
Wow. Do you find those, because I know she's got those, the facial symptoms in the book. Have you found them accurate?
Mhm.
Have you?
And so for me, I always tend to have like staph and like always coming up. Like I need to take those regularly. And you can see like fine lines on my face. I have a symphytum line. It's like the bridge where people have like, some people can have a really strong bridge where it's like really pronounced, kind of almost like
Mm.
a lump right there and then a line. But some people can just have a tiny little fine line there. But the hypericum line is straight, one in the center. The ledum lines, they're like the ignatias straight up, the 11s. You get those 11 lines there that we all hate.
I think I
Um,
have those.
Sedum lines, they kind of tip in. And so I think in Chinese medicine, they call it like the hanging dagger or the father line, it's been called before. So Ledum has a lot of issues with the father. And so it's slanted in like that. And Natmer has like a square jaw. Staphysagria also has pursed lips. A lot of times they'll have little lines around their lips. She says because people are like, just in their talk. But also a really pulled back jaw, which is
Mhm.
interesting because I had jaw surgery when I was a teenager because mine was too in and was causing disruption. Had I not, you know, had I not known, I could have just taken Staphysagria and it could have helped to relax my muscles and stop pulling it back so much. But yeah, that's why people who need Staphysagria have so much TMJ and jaw issues is because their muscles are being pulled back. And then that disrupts the sphenoid as well. And so megapotencies are for like emotional long term issues, or sometimes you can use them for initial, like really big traumas that have happened. So you wouldn't necessarily run to a megapotency just for everything, but it's more for like the tension and emotional release. And also, she makes a point on there as far as like guilt. If you have a lot of stored up guilt, that can also affect how you hold your body and your structure. And the megapotencies help to release it. And
Wow.
so she commonly would give a remedy like maybe once every 3 or 6 months. It's not like she was like giving them like candy all the time. But when she was doing her talks on the mega groups, she said that recently she had found, after she put her book out, that she could give somebody a 10 mm and she could give them a little vial of it and let them take it as needed for however long until they forgot. And then that would be like she was giving a more strong, like mm. And so she's like, you can tell people that, or they can just take the single dose of the mm and then wait a little bit. And that would be for more like ancestral or like trauma release type things, not like you're in a lot of pain. So the more pain you have, obviously, you can take it a little more frequently. But when I was doing it for my back, there was hardly anybody on the mega page that knew if it was okay for me to continue. That was kind of like the
Because
first
you
one.
haven't mentioned dosing yet. You were using them quite frequently, right?
Yeah. And I didn't know. Like there was nobody to tell me yes or no. And so yeah, I just did it and it worked. So yeah, so I
Can you
would.
give us some like specifics of how often you would use them? And this is obviously for Kelly's individual situation. Individual results may vary.
So I took hypericum, symphytum on day 1 to 3 when I first started. I was just testing the waters out. That was a MM.
Mm.
And then I took Hydrastis and Staphysagria MM day 3 to 6. So I was just kind of like putting my big toe in there and seeing if,
Mm.
anything kill me. So And then I would take one in the morning and one at night. And I was just trying to like play with it. And,
Mm,
I didn't notice anything horrible happening. And I didn't really notice a lot of help for
mm,
my back. And so I was like, okay, maybe these aren't the right ones for me. I would occasionally take Arnica 1M, trying to like help with pain. I even played with like the doses of Arnica. I would take a 12 or one. I was like, something's got to give. And then I found I took Staphysagria MM every day for 1 week. And I got some symptoms. Like I've always had a little bit of like scalp issues, which obviously I need staff for, but it kind of flared it. And I had a little bit of muscle aches different from my back, but I noticed the numbness in my body was leaving. And so for me, that was a long term thing for me is like I would be feeling good for a while. And then all of a sudden I would start to get numb again. And I would like, oh man, I've got to take another remedy. And so I would take Staphysagria or Papabar, but it would bring back pain. And so it kind of sucked to have to keep myself into pain. That I knew that was part of the healing is like, I can't be numb all the time. So I needed to like, keep opening that up. But when I took the Staphysagria, I realized it like brought back a lot, and it reduced the numbness a lot. And then I also have a lot of teeth sensitivity when I would take the Staphysagria. And then I decided I'd studied a little bit more and I found the Restox because I just realized, I'm in the shower a lot and I think I need Restox. And I found that she actually uses it in Omega occasionally. So I tried it in a 10M every day for a few days and that was helpful. And the staff daily as well. And I realized that my numbness was gone everywhere except for the tip of my nose, common MS symptom. And then I stumbled onto the Restox and I started taking that with Staphysagria and Calc Fluor 10M. So Restox and Staffy MM and 10M Calc Fluor. And I had quite a lot of changes from that point on. I felt some relief in my sacrum and my pubic bone area. And then after like the second or the third day, starting with the calc floor, I just felt like weakness, not necessarily pain, but there was a lot of weakness. So I was just having to be really careful from that point on. And so that's kind of what I did from that point on. I would just kind of stick with those three remedies, Restox, calc floor, and Staphysagria and played with the potencies a little bit here and there. And then the following month found Hydrastis, and that's when
mm,
I started taking that in a 10 mm. And you can take the 10 mm pretty safely for a long period of time. And so I included that one in my regimen a lot. And that helped me to get through. And eventually I just realized, hey, this is starting to heal. This is starting to heal. And then occasionally I would take cipolinum because of like destruction and degeneration. And I just felt like I needed to take a dose of that periodically. And, over a period of maybe like 8 months or so, my back came around to where, I wasn't in a lot of pain, but the main amounts of pain was cleared within maybe a month and a half. So
wow.
it's amazing, and I was
Mm,
able to function. That's the thing, and
mm,
that's a Restox thing too, is you cannot lose your function. So that was
mm,
constantly on my mind. I'm like, what if I lost my function? I
mm,
taking care of me. I have all these things I've got to do. And I also found, that Restox people are initially calc carb people, and you have worked yourself into a Restox state. And a lot of people give calc carb for back pain. That did nothing for me,
mm,
but the Restox helped a lot. And so, I was restless. I wanted to go, go, go. Even when I'm sitting and I'm in a lot of pain, I would be like rocking. That's
mm,
like I always needed that motion and the movement. For me, that just clued me in, hey, I've got to be taking Restox. And that was just a miracle in a bottle for me. It just helped a lot. And so, yeah, that's how I got through the back pains. And, it's not like perfect. I do sometimes get some more back pains. Yeah, I recently had meningitis, which was crazy. Never thought I would get that. And it
um,
kind of settled right into that midline area where I had one of my disc issues. And so I'm working through that right now. But the low back was a real challenge. That was the one that, just kept me from doing very much. And so I've had periods where I've had a little bit here and there twinges, but I know how to take care of it now and how to
Mm.
heal, the backup. And so it's not something that lingers or stays long or, where I'm like sweating because I'm hurting so bad. So it's not that kind of pain level anymore. It's much more manageable. And
That's
I would
so
never.
amazing. It's incredible because I have to say that when it comes to like chronic pain and to that severity, it's one of those things where I always wondered, can homeopathy actually do anything? Like, is that kind of like a little bit too much? But to hear your story is unbelievable. And I just want to say, I think it was Jill Turlin's husband, Brian, that he was an osteopath. Hey, or was Jill an osteopath as well? I think
I
he
don't
was I think he was the osteopath, and she just kind of like learned from him. And it was really amazing because she could give a mega and he could palpate the difference in the body. And I always think I wish I could work more closely with an osteopath for my clients so that we can give them remedies and palpate it now and again. And when I prescribe a mega and it's a client that sees a chiropractor, we've got a couple of very intuitive chiropractors in Perth or osteopath, I'll say to them, okay, so if your chiro sees you regularly, they'll know what your body kind of feels like. So take the mega beforehand and then just see if they notice a difference. And then they'll report back and say, yeah, that I adjusted much easier or it held, like the adjustment held a lot better. So that's pretty cool
Yeah.
because with that little sphenoid bone, like, Jill was saying, it's in perpetual motion. And I think that was the bit that she was like, oh, it's always moving. And so when it gets stuck in that cerebrospinal fluid, it's not going the way that it should and nourishing the body the way that it should. It makes a lot of sense that things would go wrong and that getting that back into motion and everything flowing again would have such a beautiful effect. And how incredible that we can do that with homeopathy, because you would think that you could only do that with manual manipulation, like a craniosacral osteo that could actually manipulate the skull bones so that the sphenoid can be released. But we can do that with homeopathy. It's mind blowing that a remedy can physically move bones. That
Yeah.
part blows my mind.
Yeah, it was definitely exciting to be able to see it. Maybe I'm just so thick-headed. I have to learn firsthand, so that's why I have to go through all these things. But yeah, I've never thought that like homeopathy could even like help with meningitis. I always
Yeah.
had a feeling, and I kept telling everybody, I was all my friends and stuff, homeopaths. I was like, I don't know if I would ever want to treat somebody with meningitis because it was kind of hard, but I didn't require any drugs. I didn't have to go to the hospital. I was able to do it all from home. And yeah, homeopathy is amazing. I don't know how people live without it. I don't know how I lived, like how I raised my kids without it. I was lucky I was very crunchy and I didn't like vaccinate them and all those things early on. But I didn't find homeopathy until my kids were, almost all teenagers. And so, yeah, they are fully indoctrinated now, trust me. But
Indoctrinated in homeopathy. Yeah. Amazing. I am so excited to be doing a kinesiology course next weekend with Ian White from the Bushflower Essences. So about 2 weeks ago, I got this email. I've been asking for a long time because I really want to learn kinesiology or muscle testing or something. And all the courses I've seen, they just haven't felt right. And then 2, 3 weeks ago, this email came through saying muscle testing course, Ian White, in person in Sydney. And it just so happens that we're going to be there. And it's the day before my birthday. I said to my husband, this is my birthday present. And even better, a few days ago, Ian's assistant emailed me and said, Ian said to ask if you would like to come and walk with him in the bush on this land the day before. And I'm like, well, it happens to be my birthday, so yeah, I cannot think of more fun thing to do. So it's going to be awesome. I can't wait to use muscle testing, Kelly, because that's the one thing that like sometimes just throws me with, I think I was always very resistant to kinesiology and muscle testing because I thought I didn't study for 4 years to then just use like muscle testing to tell me what to do. Like I worked very hard for 4 years, so I will use my brain. But then, homeopathy is so vast. And if we've got like a little tool up our sleeves that can help us make a decision, then why wouldn't we use it? So I think I'm finally ready to use kinesiology as well.
I don't use it so willy-nilly, like, oh, I'm just gonna like all of the things and what is, what letter should I, some people can, they go that route. But
Yeah.
yeah, I basically get a couple remedies to choose from
Mm.
and decide which one is the best for me right now. And then the potency, what is the most effective for me right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know some people will like have a pendulum over like all their hundreds of remedies of like which one to use. I mean, that's probably like a skill in itself. But yeah, if you're muscle testing the potencies, and who knows, I mean, I prescribe so differently now than I did 10 years ago. So I'll probably do some weird and wacky stuff, in another 10 years' time that I said now I would never do. So I try to stay humble. We have so many options in homeopathy. So Paula said she's not used mega potencies, and Christine said, I've never used them, but I'm interested in learning more. So thanks for sharing, Kelly.
I have a
Ikram is,
question.
yeah, fire away, Dawn.
Okay. So you mentioned Calc Carb. Did you ever use that in mega potency? Because actually, when you read that for me, that is like the remedy. And I've had homeopaths want to give it to me. And I have a lot of arthritis issues. So Restox follows that, of course, as far as what I need. But every time I say 2 or 3 times I've tried Calc Carb, I gained weight on it. And I dropped it really quick. So I was just wondering if you'd use that in the megas, the Calc Carb.
I never tried it in a mega potency. And, I've always had like people tell me, oh, you should take Calc Carb, for this or that. And it just doesn't seem to be like the remedy for me right now. So for me, it's completely Restox. So I've never tried it in a mega before.
I was just wondering because I took Restox basically at 1M almost for a year daily.
Mhm.
A serious case of arthritis. And then that was a long, long time ago. I haven't done since. So
Did
I
it
was
help?
just wondering. I think it did, not like you would have thought, but when you read Restox, I am Restox. So I was just wondering about it because you were talking about mega, and I think it's something I'm going to look more seriously at.
I mean, if the
Thank you.
one help you, definitely. I would look at, mega potencies and see if you think that, something in a
Thank you.
mega twice and try it out.
Yeah, might as well. I took CMs one time from Ikram before.
Mhm.
No reactions, but no help.
They're very, very gentle, and I think maybe on a more miasmatic level. So I don't feel like they're very physical. In fact, Jill has like a list of the different things that she felt like the megapotencies helped, and CM falls under like emotional, hormonal, endocrine.
Mm.
So you're not going to see physical changes with that, but the 50M is very strong physical change. And then, the 10M, everybody says, oh, it antidotes chemicals or helps with detox, or it can be like structural. But the MM will give you physical and structural bone and tissue alignment. And
Wow.
they suggest not to give it to like frail or elderly. So
Mm.
the 10 is one that you can repeat
Mm.
constantly, and that's a little bit more gentle and slow acting. The is the one she initially started using, the one she talks about in her book, but it does sometimes give a little bit of a punch because it will
Mm.
enact changes a little bit more quickly. Whereas the 10 is just a little bit more of a slow drip. It will still get to there, just going to take a little while longer. So for me, I didn't have time to do that slow drip with the
Yeah.
10 I needed something more physical, and so the worked for me. I never tried. I don't want to say I never did. I can't remember if I tried a 50 but I did, ask if I needed that potency. I think I mostly took the initially, and then I might have gone to 50 after that.
If you just think of, Kelly, what you were doing before you were even qualified, like it's amazing. I mean, homeopathy is pretty good like that. Like if you're somebody that doesn't, I mean, if you're just a home prescriber that tries stuff nilly-willy, that's not very safe. But if you are a home prescriber that is not afraid to invest time in learning, you can really do a lot of amazing work yourself. And there's so much free resources online these days, but if you have to put in the time and effort to learn, and then you can do amazing stuff yourself. I just quickly want to answer a question here because I think it's Kelly. Hey, so Jim Harner's wife. You're Kelly, right?
Hi,
Yeah,
yes.
that's right. I think I've got it
Yeah.
down. So Kelly was asking, is Q potency the same as mega? So Q actually just means 50,000. So it's a completely different potency scale. So the mega potencies are C potencies. So like a 30C or a 200C or a 1M, which you would be familiar with. But this is just going up in that same scale, but up to MM, which is a million. M stands for 1,000. So if you've got an MM, that's 1,000,000. So it's basically a million C. Instead of 30C, it's a million C. Or
Okay.
10 mm is 10 million C. But a
Q
Q,
is 50,000.
no. So Q is a different potency scale. So a C
Okay.
potency scale is 1 drop mother tincture to 99 drops of water and alcohol. A Q potency is a different scale. It's kind of like a tissue salt is a different scale. Tissue salt is 1 to 9. So you've got 10 drops that you start off with. A Q is 1 drop mother tincture to 49,999 drops of water. So you've got
Ooh.
50,000 drops that you start off with. So it's
Mhm.
much kind of like more dilute. And then you start succussing from there.
They called
Does
them
that make it?
LMs also.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
LMs.
Yeah.
So,
So the LM works more deeply than a 50M, possibly like a single dose of a CM I have in my notes, but it's gentle, like a low dose potency, and you can repeat it daily.
Okay,
So
because that's what my homeopath prescribed for me to use daily.
yeah, and so with
yeah.
LMs, you don't see the initial like return of symptom right up front. You'll see that at the end of when you're needing to go up in a potency or change potency. So it's a
I
little
haven't seen
different.
anything. It's been like 5 months.
Been
Yeah.
on it for 5 months.
Yeah. And my husband saw the same person, and so did my daughter, and she prescribed the same, not the same remedy, but in the same potency. And none of us have seen a change really. But
I used LMs like 14 years ago when I started prescribing, and I never noticed much change with them. So I completely stopped using them. But Nicole on my team uses them a lot, and she gets really great results with them. So I've just started introducing them into my practice. And it's funny because a couple of weeks ago I was chatting with Danitza, and she was saying she's feeling more called to use the LMs. And I was like, that's really strange because out of the blue, I've just felt intuitively called to start prescribing LMs. So it'll be interesting to see when the follow-ups are in the next, 6 weeks or so to see if there's a bit more response now. So yeah, they are quite gentle. And saying that, when I caught up with Leah Golden about a month ago, when she said that she had the biggest aggravation of her life on Chamomilla LM1.
hmm.
So yeah, so we get told that they did approving of Chamomilla LM1 when she was studying, and she had the biggest aggravation of her life. So yeah, it's a funny one, hey.
I was trained heavily in LMs in
Ah,
school. They were trying to like get more practitioners to know LMs. And so I used them a lot. And the teachers there did not like using the LM1. And so they would initially start on LM3.
okay.
And so they would start on that. And then depending on how you used it, you would either jump skip to LM3 to LM5 or move a little more quickly and go to the 4 and then the 5. So if you're on it a long time, then they would like jump skip up. But they said they see less aggravation starting with the 3 for some odd reason. So I don't know. I particularly pick and choose when I use the LM versus the centesimals, and it's more if there's a super sensitive client and
Mm.
they seem to aggravate on like everything,
Yeah,
then
that's what I'm using it for
um,
too.
I will use that. And I'm seeing some good results doing that. Also, sometimes if there is a maintaining cause or something that, like they're taking a specific prescription and they need a dose every day, that would be another reason to take it. But if you have a strong vital force, then I don't see why you couldn't take a centesimal or something like that. So
I also
Kelley,
like starting out with centesimals so you know that because you're going to have that probably initial aggravation and then amelioration, okay, that's the right remedy. And then you go to the alums to kind of like continue the work. That's another way to do it.
what were you saying, Kelley?
I had another question. Talking about your history, you sound so similar to my sister with her bulging discs in her back and the syphilite and miasm kind of. But she has been using some sort of opioid or something from her doctor for like 30 years. Like she's a working person taking that. But how would you introduce any of this if there is that underlying kind of addiction?
If she still has, I mean, if she's still taking the opioids, she can still take the remedies. It would just be hard to see the picture clearly. So,
Mhm.
that's the thing. If she could remember what her symptoms initially were, that you could
With a
use
car
that.
accident.
And I'm sure she's probably going to end up needing a drug remedy anyway. So,
Mm.
yeah.
Kelley Palomino is taking on new clients, I believe. So if your sister wanted to, see her, I'm
I'm
sure she.
definitely gonna mention that. I was wondering about that.
Mm.
Yay.
I'm trying to get Kelley to join my team because I'm like, this lady is gold. She needs to come hang out with me. Anyone else have any questions? You guys got some bonus content here with the different potencies and things as well, which is That's really great.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing with homeopathy. We just have so much to work and play with. So when people say, "Oh, I've tried homeopathy, it didn't work," like, I just want to scream. Or they say, "Oh, yeah, I saw a homeopath and it didn't work," and I'm like, go see a different homeopath then, because I think what's going to be one of the most important things for people looking for a homeopath to work with to understand is that you need to find a homeopath that resonates with you and like the way that you prescribe. I almost wish we could create like a little flow chart. Like, are you this type of person? Do you have these types of symptoms? Then you need to see this type of homeopath. Like, so you can find like the right homeopath to work with from the start.
Yeah, I think it's hard for people if they don't understand homeopathy fully.
Mm.
Even if they do those, 10-minute intakes or whatever to
Yeah.
get to them, it's hard to know. So I can see how that would be hard.
Mm. Kelly, do you want to pop your website in there? And we'll pop your website in because
Yeah.
Dawn's just saying, can somebody post their website? New York, Oregon. Oh my goodness. I think this time zone's pretty good for you guys, eh? Oh, this time
Yeah,
says
I'm in Washington State, so yeah, I'm in the
Washington State. Awesome. Anyone else have any other questions? I don't really want to say goodbye, so that's why I'm kind of hoping somebody will ask another question so we can hang out a bit more. My family's still asleep. Look, I'll show you guys. We're just in this
You got
really
to be
little
crack of dawn for this video.
well, it's we're in this. That's the kind of like a little inlet over there. We're in this really little dingy like caravan park. It is tiny. I tell you what, I am so over reviews. Like there's so many reviews that'll say, "Oh, this place is great, that place is great," and then you get there and it's like, what? But anyway, the beach is right there, so or the little
Have you
inlet.
decided if you're going to drive back over the top?
We really want to. We really want to. So we've got until June to decide which way we're gonna go. Well, end of May, we need to decide which way to go. I think I'm trying to fit too much into a shorter period of time.
I can ask a question.
Yeah, go for it, Dawn.
So I'm just wondering, when it comes to heavy metals, have you ever seen anyone use these potencies with that? Because we just did our Elio scans. Is that how you say it?
Illegal
And
scans, yeah.
I mean, I guess that is a predictor of why I've been a struggle to heal. But anyway, our metals, me and my husband's, are quite high, very high. And so I'm in the process of figuring out how I'm going to deal with that. But anyway, have you used the CMs with the heavy metals, or is that just like asking a lot?
I don't particularly think that they would be good for the heavy
I was
metal
wondering. Yeah.
part. Jill says that symphytum will help to remove toxins from your fats and lumps.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's a good one, but not necessarily, taking it in mega potency just to like detox heavy metals. I don't think I would suggest that.
Sounds scary.
You probably know
Yeah.
what I'm gonna say, Dawn. I think we've been hanging out enough.
What are you going to say? Tell me.
Oh, no, just that if you've done the Lego scan, just make sure your zinc, your iodine, and selenium is up.
Yeah.
That up, and
I
then you retest, and then all those metals will come down by themselves.
I think we're
it
just
was
so malnutritioned that, we're just out of balance.
right, and I've been on a very heavy healing thing, and my iodine, I cannot even believe, was okay. My husband's was not, but yeah, the zinc went in place and all that. Yeah, definitely doing all that. I just was wondering when it comes to.
Mm. It will be
I
interesting to
mean,
see if your iodine is actually okay. Like once you've done the second
I
scan, because
know.
that first one, it can actually be like a
Yeah.
blockade. So it might look like it's okay. But then you start giving some supplements and then things start shifting and then you see a truer picture after that, especially if your zinc is out. Once you then fix that, when you rescan, you see the true picture of where the minerals are at and the
Okay, because I didn't believe it was enough. I
Mm.
for this a sec
And it might
because
be
I have
because
thyroid issues. And,
ah,
I just didn't think it was. I, But I know you can't take them at face value, and I haven't fully
Mm.
been able to learn the whole thing. So anyhow, all right,
Oh, it
that's
takes
what I wanted to know.
ages.
The
Yeah.
Yeah.
megapotencies can help with the thyroid issues, though, because they
Mm,
do touch on the endocrine system.
mm,
So,
Mhm.
but it's just
I've heard that.
not something you would take willy-nilly. So,
mm,
you would need to work on getting the supplements into your system, and
Hmm.
then, making sure your sphenoid is open and working so that your
mm.
endocrine is functioning correctly.
Yeah.
Um, but not necessarily for heavy metal.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I wanted to ask. Thank you so
Sure.
much.
And Christine has just asked, what about for scar tissue and loss of mobility in the knee?
Mm. I'm really sure about that for megapotencies. I know that it will help with, the tensions and stuff like that, but actually for the
Mm.
injuries itself, I would think that just sticking with the normal
It's the
potency.
thiocyanamidin.
Yeah, and yeah, trying to break up that scar tissue.
Christine, Nariani has a scar tissue mix, which I use these days. I used to just use thiocyanamidin, but these days I just use the Nariani scar tissue mix because that's got thiocyanamidin in it, and people get such
Yeah.
good results with the Nariani. So
And is that in a 50M?
I don't know. Couldn't tell you off the top of my head. My book's just in the caravan at the
I was
moment.
just wondering, yeah, because that would be more like physical or whatever. So that,
Yeah.
and that would be considered mega, so
Yeah,
it would.
exactly. Catherine's going to get a scan done April 21st. Cool.
I have a
Um,
question.
yeah, fire away, Tracy.
Hi, sorry. I came in late, so you were talking about the sphenoid bone being stuck when I was just hopping on. And every time I get cranial sacral once a month, and every time I get it, she always tells me my sphenoid bone is stuck. The first time she unstuck it, it was crazy. I got incredibly dizzy because I just had that rush of fluid. And so it has been getting better, but I was wondering if you could go over those remedies again for the sphenoid.
You can maybe just watch the replay, Tracy, because we're just about
Okay,
to finish up, and then you can watch the replay. But also, you can book a consult with Kelley as well. Hey, so have a
great.
listen to the replay, play around with some mega potencies if you feel confident doing so, and if you don't have any luck, then definitely book a consult with Kelley, and she can prescribe something for you.
Great. Thank you.
That's all right. Thanks for joining us. Awesome, Kelley. Any final words from you?
No, I don't think so.
Thank you so much. You did put your website, restoringtohealth.com. So you can go check Kelley out at restoringtohealth.com. And it's great because we've got so many members that are in the States. So for you guys to have a homeopath over there that's in the same time zone as you is like amazing, absolutely amazing. Really, really cool. Catherine saying, thank you. Barbara saying, thank you. Dawn saying, so happy things have improved for you. So, yeah. And it's great that we're going to have this in the replay for everyone to have listened to. I'm sure there'll be lots of lovely comments on there as well. And this is why we have these conversations because all of us have and and I think that's why I'm so passionate about continuous education because it's impossible to listen to somebody like you speak and not go, oh, that might help my auntie. Oh, that might help my client. Oh, maybe I should try that for myself. So it's great to like get this information and just try different ideas. And if you've been trying the 30Cs, 200s that haven't done anything, then maybe the mega potencies is something to play with. And they've
Yeah.
got all these
And even if
incredible
you're
tools.
not a practitioner, like the experiences from other people, we value all of that because it
Absolutely.
helps us all, you know?
Absolutely. And it helps us to not get stuck in that dogma because, we were taught, like with mega potencies, you have to be really careful, like I said at the start. But then somebody like you comes along and you're like, I'm taking it daily, and that's the only thing that helped my back pain. And then you have to kind of rethink, okay, so maybe what I was taught is different to how it works in practicality. So let's be a little bit more open-minded and try a few more things and then go from there. So that's what I love real life experience and clinical experience. And like, this is actually what helped for this person. It's not going to be for everyone, but we need to share all of these stories and learn from each other and stay open-minded. Alrighty, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm a bit sad going.
Take care.
Bye.